Welcome to Transformation for Success with Dr. Barbara Young. If you're looking for something more, something different, something better, this is your opportunity. Over the next hour, we'll talk about inspiration for personal and professional success. Now, here is your host, Dr. Barbara Young.
Well, hi there, and welcome to all my international listeners, my national and local listeners. This is the Transformation for Success show, and let me tell you, we have a show for you today. So listen in, and joining me today is my esteemed guest, Miss Vanessa De Luca, editor-in-chief of the very popular magazine Essence. I met Ms. De Luca some months ago in Los Angeles, and I was so delighted that she took time from her busy schedule to be on the show today. So listeners, I want you to text or email your friends to listen in to today's show, or they can download, and this is the neat thing, is they can download the show later for their listening pleasure. I'm also inviting all of you out there who are listening, you can call in the show as we're live and we can take your questions. The number to call in and join the show is 888-346-9141. Or if you're calling internationally, it's 001-480-553-5754. Don't be shy because we'd love to have your questions. You know, today we're going to discuss Vanessa's journey to become this amazing award-winning journalist, and she has been a featured guest on several national television networks, such as the NBC Today Show, the MSNBC Morning Joe, CNN, HLN, and HuffPost Live, and many, many more. So she is going to share her journey and the images of Black women in media today, her career success, and what it means to stay woke in our current social climate. But first, I want to share a little bit of Miss Vanessa De Luca's background. So, and I want to say hi, Vanessa. I'm glad you're here with us today.
Hi, I'm thrilled to be with you.
Well, I want to share with the listeners who might not know about Miss De Luca and some of your accomplishments, because they are really numerous. She, first of all, is the editor, as I said earlier, editor-in-chief of Essence magazine. And in this role, she serves as the brand's editorial leader, and she oversees the magazine's web content, its site, and its mission. And Ms. De Luca first joined Essence more than a decade ago. I don't know if she wants me to tell you that, but
It's okay.
She looks 25, and she was the beauty and fashion features editor, and she directed all the style and beauty sections. And then in 2003, she was named the lifestyle director, and there she was had oversight responsibility for coverage regarding food, home, parenting, and technology. In 2005, she was named executive editor, and she was implementing the brand's creative vision and its operation, and a very important thing, and that's the magazine's operating budget. So, prior to joining Essence, she served in a variety of editorial capacities as with publications such as Life and Glamour. But I think the most important thing that I want a lot of you women listeners and men as well to know, that this woman received her bachelor's degree cum laude in English and American Literature from Harvard University, and she had her Master of Science degree in Magazine Conversation from Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism. So not only do we have an accomplished woman, but we have a woman that I call a female woman power broker. And so welcome again, Miss Vanessa De Luca. I am so excited. I can't wait to start asking you all these kind of questions.
Ask away. I'm ready.
Well, you know, I know our listeners are in for such a treat, and I wanted to just sort of set the stage in terms of what an impressive background you have. And truly, again, I just want to share with the listeners, where did it all begin with you?
Well, let's see. I mean, do you want me to start with like where I grew up and that
grow
kind
up?
of thing,
you know, it's kind of fascinating. A girl. Okay. Did you grow up in Scotch Plains, New Jersey, or where did you grow up?
No, actually, well, I was born in a very small town called Fort Deposit, Alabama. It's about 30 miles, I will say, south of Montgomery, which is the closest, biggest city. And my parents, who were, high school sweethearts, got married, and then my dad, migrated north to look for work and found work in New Jersey. And so I grew up in New Jersey, in East Orange, New Jersey. And I've lived all over the state, except for the time, of course, when I was away in college. But, now I live with my family in Scotch Plains, and, I really love it there. I'm the only child, so I've always felt kind of like I would love to have had some older siblings, especially like an older brother, who I could meet all of his friends. I think all girls kind of think about that sometimes. But I now am the mother of two. Both my kids are in high school, and so we're going through the current swirl of a freshman year and senior year, trying to get my son ready for high school. So it's a busy time, but it's great.
Well, it sounds great. One of the things that I'm always intrigued about, I mean, you grew up the only child and came out of Alabama. Did you ever hear of Enterprise, Alabama?
Oh, I think I have. Actually, there are so many small towns in Alabama, but I still have a lot of family there, and I do think of it as home because that's where I spent every summer when I was growing up with my grandparents.
The reason why I mentioned, because my ex-husband was from Enterprise, Alabama, and we visited Enterprise, and it had a boll weevil in the middle of the town, a statue of a boll weevil.
Wow.
And I always remember Alabama with fondness. I took my children there when they were small, and it was just really quite an experience because out of California going to Alabama, so it's just really, really, really a great city, really. And I've met a lot of people from Alabama, who are some great individuals. One of the things I wanted to ask, when you were growing up and you were going to school in New Jersey, did you realize you were smart?
Well, I think that I don't think that I thought about it very often. I knew that I was good at school. I took pride in being a good student and in my studies. And my parents always instilled in me that education was extremely important, that it was the key to being successful in life, and that, we should constantly be learning. So there are many times when we'd be sitting around the kitchen table, and my parents always had books around and magazines, and we'd talk about the things that they'd be reading about, like what the issues of the day were, and expressing your opinion. And I learned a lot from that and from watching them. And it's something that I continue to this day. I mean, there's always a stack of books on my nightstand, and I've always got a magazine in my bag, and even now, I'm constantly on social media looking for, opinions and ideas, and just continuing to learn. I think it's really important.
I think it is, and you make a strong case, too, for what I call, and you've heard many people, and I'm sure you've said this in many of your speeches, especially to high school students, there's a lot to be said about nurture and environment. You grow up around people, your parents talking around the table, books and reading, and it's so important. And here you find yourself becoming an English major, and not only that, getting a Bachelor of Arts degree cum laude. So that's why I asked that question. Because I'm sure you had to have that planted in you and then to know that you could succeed. How did you get into becoming into the magazine world, the editorial world of magazines? Was this a desire that you had?
Well, it's interesting because my first job out of college wasn't in publishing. It was actually in retail. I was like a manager in a retail store, and then I learned how to become an assistant buyer. And I thought in the beginning that I wanted to go the retail buying route. I just thought it was such a glamorous field, and that you get to travel and see the world and all those things that you dream about when you're younger. And then once I got into it, I realized that it wasn't necessarily the best fit for me, because it was a lot of numbers crunching and statistics, and it wasn't as glamorous as I imagined it was, in my mind. And I just found myself always still veering towards writing, and I was taking classes at night just for fun and just for my own education, and nonfiction writing and advertising writing, all kinds of stuff like that. So there was, I guess, still that kernel inside that was saying, at some point you may want to take that leap. So I worked in retailing for 7 years, and then I realized that this really wasn't the thing for me. So I changed my careers. And at that point, that's how I started getting into magazine publishing. I'd always loved magazines. And I thought that it was, I was very intrigued by the process of putting a magazine together and the ability to tell stories that way.
Well, I'm so glad to get in this. I feel like we're just sitting on the couch talking, Vanessa, because really this is my opportunity to help some of the people out there, and particularly some of the women and men. But I'm so intrigued by your journey. So I want you to just sort of clarify, what are some of the characteristics you attribute to creating your success?
I think, there's a number of things. I think just that general curiosity about the world and about life is essential. It's critical to what I do now. Being able to anticipate what things people might be interested in, what people are talking about, on the things that matter to people, and how do we tell those stories in a way that's compelling. So curiosity is, I think, the number one thing I think that is attributed to my success, but that also just that tenacity and persistence and not giving up. At a certain point, you really do have to believe that if something is for you, it's for you, and have faith that it will work itself out. But you have to be very clear in your own mind what it is that you want. And I think that taking the time to get that clarity is really important. So many of us just kind of rush through life and just go from one thing to the next. But I've always tried to take time to get very quiet and center myself so I'm not reacting to the whatever circumstances are in front of me, but being a little bit more thoughtful and mindful about what my next step should be.
And I really appreciate that. One of the things I like to comment you made about how success comes in stages, and you also said, what I heard you say at one time was, you need to course correct. I like that. I like course
because
correct.
You're not always going to get it
or
right. Like you're not always going to make the right, perfect decision every single time. And actually, that's okay. We learn a lot from the mistakes and the failures that we have. I mean, I could have, after spending 7 years in retailing, I could have just said, well, I've already invested this much time. I might as well just stick with it. But if I hadn't admitted to myself that this wasn't the perfect fit for me, then I never would have made the shift, and I never then consequently would have ended up in this position. Sometimes you really do have to say it's okay to course correct. It's okay that you may have made a choice that wasn't the right thing for you, but that doesn't mean that you can't fix it and move on from there.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because how many women have you met during your career and lifetime so far that have not made that decision to I love your word, course correct? And they're just in it, and they're just existing. It just pains me how many women or men that you've met who they're in that situation and they don't. How do we get them to move?
I think quite honestly, that's one of the things that I love about this job and this work is that it's not just a job. I mean, I really do see this platform as a way for us to empower women, especially Black women, to say, it's okay to shift into something else. It's okay to take a big leap. It's okay to want more out of your life. It's okay to take some time to self-care because we do so much for other people. All of those things are okay. And just to reinforce that message in many different ways, as we do through all the stories that we tell, I'm hopeful that it does make women see that they don't have to stay in, they don't have to stay stagnant. They don't have to be in limbo. They don't have to be in the same place.
Well, one of the things I do know about your story, which I know will encourage many, many people out there, is that you actually were pursuing something you really wanted, and you were turned down twice. And not only that, but you had naysayers, and I can relate to that. When I got ready to get a doctorate, I had people saying, "Why are you getting a doctorate at your age?" So, you if you had listened to those naysayers and stopped after the first two times, you wouldn't be there. So share a little bit about what that felt like of applying for something, and then you got all these folks saying, "Why are you looking at that? Why?"
Yeah, no, I mean, before I became editor-in-chief in 2013, but I had tried out for the position and gone through, what they like to call a bake-off, just this kind of competition between all the people who are trying to achieve this role. And I'd done it twice before, and the first time I kind of knew that I wasn't going to get it, but I thought it was important to throw my hat into the ring and let people, if for nothing else, to let people know that I did have a goal in mind. Eventually, that I wanted to, I wanted to move up, and I wanted to take on more responsibility, and so I thought it was important for that. The second time was a lot more painful, I have to say, because I felt that I tried so hard, and I put forth my best effort, and I presented myself well, and all those things that you do when you really want something, and then it didn't happen. And I just felt like, wow, am I beating my head against the wall? Is this never going to happen for me? But instead of, just taking that and, like licking my wounds and running away, I felt like, well, there's probably some reason why I didn't get it. Maybe there's a lot more that I need to learn before I'm really ready to be in this role, and let me just see what I can learn out of this. And so that's how I kind of got myself through it, using this seeing it as an opportunity to get some more grounding and observe other people, somebody else in the role, and learn from that.
I think that's great. I like that word, learn, that we learn from our experiences, be they negative or positive. There is a reason for everything, and that's one of my belief systems, that when it happens, you say, what do I need to learn from this, and keep on trying. Well, you know what? We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with my guest today, Vanessa De Luca, and we got a lot more questions to ask her, and so listeners, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Follow us on Twitter for more great ideas at Voice America Empowerment.
Can you think of anybody who does not want a better life and to be a better person? Think about that for a second. Almost everyone wants to be better, but how does one go about doing that? One thing that is making people better every week is tuning into the Self-Improvement Show with Dr. Irene Conlon. All real change comes from within. But many of us don't know where to find the information or guidance we need to make the changes that bring about the improvement. Most of us don't know how to work within. Listen Thursdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on Voice America Empowerment.
Do you or somebody you love have a struggle with abuse? You don't need to be a slave to your abuse anymore. Listen for Beyond Abuse, Beyond Therapy, Beyond Anything with Dr. Lisa Cooney. Dr. Lisa overcame struggles in her own life. 2 decades of sexual, emotional, and physical abuse nearly took their toll. In her 20s, she turned her life around and set upon a path to help others. She can help you find the key to take control of your life, too. Listen every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
Friend us on Facebook to keep up with what's empowering the world. Voice America Empowerment.
This is Transformation for Success. To reach Dr. Barbara Young or today's guest, please call into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to info@transformationforsuccess.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hi there, and welcome back. This is Dr. Barbara Young, and I'm here in the studio with my guest, Miss Vanessa De Luca, who is editor-in-chief of Essence Magazine. This woman is an award-winning journalist. She's a co-author of a best-selling book on Tyra Banks, Beauty Inside and Out. And I want to just tell you this. She is absolutely that woman that personifies herself, beauty and inside and out. And it is my delight and honor to have this award-winning woman on the show today, Miss Vanessa De Luca. And so when we went on break, we were talking about learning from challenges that sometimes don't always work out. And then what do? We learn from them. So I want to thank you, Vanessa, for sharing that, going for something 2 times. And so when you went for the 3rd time, it worked out. But I want to sort of address this too. How can we be smart when we're taking a risk or reinventing our career? Because one of the things that I heard you also say in a former talk was it's never too late to pursue a dream. So here you are, listeners, if you're just tuning in now, she spent 7 years in retail. Now, I didn't know that, and I think that, and then decided this is not for me and began to pursue another dream. So, Vanessa, tell me what that was like when you decided this is it. And first of all, and you go through this experience of trying for this job, not once, but twice, and you learn from that experience. So I just want to segue back to what did you learn from that experience that you can share with the listeners?
Well, I think the most important thing I learned is to trust myself or trust my own instincts, because even though there were plenty of people around me saying that, maybe this isn't for you, maybe it's not going to happen, maybe you should move on to something else, but I just always, in my gut, and I just felt that this was something that was right for me, and it was meant to happen for me. And it was very difficult to shut out all of the other noise. But when you spend enough time with yourself to get to know yourself really well, when it's something that you want to stick with or something that, you can be honest with yourself. Maybe I should move on. I never felt that way. I always felt like it just wasn't the right time. And you know the difference if you really know yourself.
You really do. So it's never too late to pursue a dream. And now, you were like 30 years old when you decided to quit that career in retail.
Yes, and if you would see, I'm sure my parents must have thought I was crazy. A lot of people did. And I ended up, actually, I had my own apartment, everything. I ended up taking a huge pay cut. I moved back in with my parents, which I'm sure they were thrilled about. But, I said, this is only temporary until I get myself, back on my feet, or I get through this, this phase. But, I was very fortunate to have their support, to let me to move back home. And it's the minute that I started the job, and I literally started as an editorial assistant at Glamour magazine. I started all over again. I was the oldest editorial assistant there. But the minute I started, everything clicked. Like, it felt right. And I don't know how to describe that feeling, but it just felt like I found something where I belonged. And it was exciting. And, I was willing to do just about anything just to learn. And that's kind of what you want. You want to feel eager. You want to feel excited. You want to feel motivated.
That's true. That's true. When you find your purpose, your passion, that's your calling, And the thing that you were willing to take that risk, move back home, take a big pay cut, move back home. I know that was humbling. People think you're crazy. But then taking a job as an editorial assistant at age 30, that means you had to eliminate pride and move that out of the way and say, I'm here and I'm going to learn. That's admirable, Vanessa. So I can see why you are where you are today. Because it's like building a scaffold or building a ladder, and all of it sort of plays into something, because I'm sure what you learned as an editor-in-chief allowed you to move to the next rung. So what happened next?
Well, once as an editorial assistant, because I had work experience, because I knew what the work world was like. I wasn't coming straight out of college. I mean, I had a lot of real life experience, and I think that helped me. In fact, I ended up getting promoted twice while I was at Glamour, and then after about 3 years, I decided I wanted to get my master's degree in journalism, because I knew this. Now I was really committed, right? But I hadn't worked for my college newspaper. I hadn't done any of the things that people typically do when they're going into magazine publishing. And I thought, well, let me just get some more experience under my belt. And so I took a year and went to Columbia Graduate School of Journalism and got my master's in journalism, got some really amazing experience, met tons of people who work in the industry, and actually that's how I ended up getting my first job out of Columbia as a senior writer at Life magazine. Yeah.
Wow. I'm so glad to hear you share this story, because, this is just a lesson for people to know that you can get whatever you want, but it's going to be, you need to know what that is. And then number two, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And it looks like to me you just made a straight line, said, this is what I want to do. I'm headed towards it. So, which lets me get into a question I've been intrigued about, is that because you are an African-American woman in media, you've been in media now as the editor-in-chief of this very large magazine. What are the images of Black women in media today, and how they have an impact on our community? Share a little bit about that with me.
Oh, sure. So a couple of years ago, Essence actually undertook a research study about images of Black women in media, and part of what we learned is that for the vast majority of us, we're not satisfied. In fact, we feel that media does a poor to terrible job in representing the fullness of who we are. And we were able to kind of group some of the stereotypical images, things like the angry Black woman, the uneducated Black woman, the Jezebel, those kinds of, those are the typologies that we see the most of. But then we also, in the study, came up with a bunch of images that we would like to see more of, like the modern mom. You think about like a Michelle Obama, the acculturated girl next door. You think about young, amazing young women like Yara Shahidi on Blackish, or you think about Solange Knowles, that have real messages behind their music. These are some of the women, the types of women that we know that occupy the same space as we do, but we never get to see them in media, or very rarely. And it gave us a way of actually not only guiding us around what kinds of stories we wanted to do going forward across all of our platforms, and what kinds of ways that we want to use our platforms to encourage better images. So, for example, one of the things that came out of the study is that we launched a short film contest, and we invited young filmmakers to create images that were in a more positive, portrayed us in more positive ways, and helped. And that helped. We felt like with that we were helping kind of feed the pipeline. Like if you don't see it in what's existing already, how do we encourage others to create it? So that's just one of the things that we've done in terms of trying to help improve the images. But yeah, I mean the when you really think about everything that you see on TV and film, even in social media and on the web, it really does. It really does have an impact that you don't even realize.
Well, I think about all those subliminal messages that go out that portray images of black women, and a lot of them, I tell you, have not been positive. So I'm glad that there is more of a movement of women in media and how we can work to improve the images. One of my thoughts, and I'm sure you're dealing with this too, how do we reach out and engage more millennials in terms of their imagery, how they see themselves, those African American women, and what do we predict for them? Are they embracing this notion of improving the images of African American women?
What I think is truly encouraging and exciting to see is, we engage with millennials. We engage with many different generations of women, but in terms of the millennial space, we have a great engagement on Snapchat. And so we tried out different types of content on Snap. The average age of the women who engages with us there is like from between 12 and 18. And as much as she loves, celebrity and beauty and fashion, she also really loves culture and learning more about our history. And whenever we do that kind of content in our Snapchat space, it does extremely well. So to me, great. That just shows that, don't just assume that certain generations aren't into or don't have a concern about the way that we're portrayed and the way that we see ourselves. So they care about all of it just as much as, someone in an older demographic does. It's just all in how you present the information and how you engage people.
And that's so true. And I'm glad to hear about that. I haven't gotten used to Snapchat yet, but I'm gonna have to get on with Snapchat. But that's absolutely wonderful. And I just want to compliment you again, too, on Essence, the magazine, and how it's so far-reaching and so diversified. I have my copy this month of Essence magazine, and I, again, just want to thank you for keeping this magazine alive, because I know what it means in times like this with so much social media that it really is staying current. One of the things that you had talked about, and I wanted to expound on that too, is that what it means to stay woke in our current social climate. Can you expand on that?
Oh, absolutely. So, this whole conversation around wokeness is really, it's not just a fad, or it's just not just kind of like the flavor of the month. It really is a conversation that our community has been having for quite some time. And I think what it really means is to be engaged and concerned and interested in what's going on in our community in ways that can impact on us, both socially, economically, legal in the justice system. It runs the gamut, and I think staying woke, which is what people, the phrase that people like to use a lot, is really just about investing in caring about what's happening in our community and making your dent in the world in terms of how you respond to it. So if you see injustice, if you see inequalities, if you see things that aren't exactly leveling the playing field, that you feel free to speak up about them. And there are certainly so many different ways that can be done. One of the points of our May cover story, which was about where we highlighted 100 woke women, was to show that it's not only people on the front lines of activism that are woke, but in any space that you occupy, you can, push against, to rail against, injustice and inequality and make a statement and stand for something. And I think that that's important for us to know now, especially in this current climate where it seems like so many things are going backwards. So you want to give people a sense that if you stay woke and if you stay on top of what's going on, that you can still be impactful.
I think that's great. And do you feel that many people are staying awake nowadays, many more, because of all the things that we see that are taking place today in society. And wow, that people are beginning to open their eyes and have a voice.
No, absolutely, and I think that's one of the, for all the challenges that we have with social media, I think one of the amazing things is that it allows you to connect with people who are like-minded. It allows you to have a voice in spaces where you may not be able to have a voice anywhere else, but you can connect with people who are concerned about the same things that you are. And also you see the influence of social media and just how a campaign can be you can raise a campaign, you can start a hashtag movement, you can do all of these things that have incredible influence on what people think and what they say and how how they feel about something. So yeah, I would say people are absolutely engaged. You think about this whole segment on Black Twitter where you can literally raise something that you feel is unfair or unjust, and you can rally whole groups of people around that cause in a way that actually has an impact. That's not something that we've seen before. The power of it is quite extraordinary if you wield it in the right way.
I just am I'm just thankful to have this dialogue today. And what I want to know is how can we gather more women, a cross-section of women from all walks of life, to really have a discussion about this? Because there are many platforms, there are many things that are happening, but to really talk about the issues in a way that we can engage the community, but people who may not have a view the same as yours. So that, because a lot of people have different views, but they don't want to speak up and say it. So my question is, how do we frame that? And is there something that you're doing or the magazine is promoting where we can have, and I'm thinking particularly of women, African-American women, or even women across the globe, because we have some common issues in terms of our voices.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the things that's great about having a multimedia, omni-channel platform that we do is that we have a number of live events in addition to all the other things that we do, our biggest being the Essence Festival that happens every 4th of July weekend in New Orleans. And that's where a lot of these conversations come to life, whether it's in a workshop or, a more intimate setting, or whether it's on the main stage in our empowerment experience during the day, where we've had incredible voices of women like Representative Maxine Waters, like Ava DuVernay, like people who, like a Patrisse Cullors of Black Lives Matter, women who are very outspoken in these spaces, and they're cultivating this conversation and in real time, and forcing and really challenging us to think about things in a way that, or talk about things in a way one-on-one or in groups that I think helps the conversation along. It's one thing to kind of express yourself in a space like a social media, but it's another thing to be at a live event where people are having these conversations and there's a back and forth and a real sharing, and I think that's really exciting.
I think it is exciting. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back because I got more questions for you, Vanessa. And
all right.
I want to thank you for listening, but we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back. So stay tuned with my guest today, Miss Vanessa De Luca.
We're on Facebook, along with some of the greatest minds of the world, and that includes you. Visit us on Facebook at Voice America Empowerment.
How are you doing in your life? Do you control your life, or does it control you? In our hectic, overconnected world, do you spend too much time feeling tired and wired? Tune in to Master Your Life with hosts Leah Mattinson and Dr. Howard Rankin for inspiration, insight, and intelligence on how to gain control of yourself and your life. Along with some inspirational and knowledgeable guests, Leah and Howard will give you the tools needed to help you on your journey. Tune in every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
Success starts here. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com. It's your world.
This is Transformation for Success. To reach Dr. Barbara Young or today's guest, please call into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to info@transformationforsuccess.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hi there, and thank you for tuning in today to the Transformation for Success show with my guest, Mr. Vanessa De Luca, editor-in-chief of the popular magazine Essence. So I am so happy again, Vanessa, to have you in the studio today, sharing and caring, and I am so absolutely thrilled to have you share with us some of the characteristics that you attribute to your success, and then how to be smart. And you were smart with taking a risk and reinventing your career. And we've just been discussing some of the images of Black women in media today and how they impact our community, and more importantly, how to stay woke in our current social climate. So I'm going to digress a moment and talk about the challenges that do you see facing this, given the current climate and environment for women in media in general? What are some of the things that I consider myself in media as well, need to be prepared given the current climate, and what's next?
Well, you know, as the media landscape shrinks, meaning more that there's more more companies joining together, more fewer companies and much larger. It may seem that the opportunities are becoming more limited in this space, but I choose not to think of it that way. I think that it's a real opportunity using the technology that's available to us now, that there's more opportunities for people to kind of create their own spaces. So it's not like, you know, when I first started, everybody wanted to work for one of the major media publishing houses, like a Hearst or Condé Nast or Time. Now the choices are just so much broader. I mean, I think of people like Morgan DeBron, who started Blavity, a website for, young women of color. And it, in a very short period of time, how she's been able to grow, that platform. I see more young women kind of doing that, just starting it and doing it on their own. If the doors aren't open at some of the, more traditional spaces, that there is a way forward where you can create your own.
I think that's great. And I agree, I concur that, we're seeing a lot of shrinkage of the media, but we have to keep going and banding ourselves, and there are probably more opportunities. We have a growing plethora of a lot of mediums and people in media, and I am a little concerned, but I have to stay focused because, Vanessa, I'm thinking, and I'm sure you concur, that today, when we start looking at the media and the market and what people want to hear, and I know my listeners, they want to have some hope, they want encouragement, they want to know that they can be successful, healthy, wealthy, and wiser. That's kind of the 4 points. And so my challenge has always been, and I throw this out to you, how do we connect this, and particularly in a more global perspective, because there are a lot of images in our country that are not, I'm sure, not positive in terms of love and hope and encouragement. So how do we address this? Those of us who have that challenge and we have a voice in the media community.
I mean, I think that the answer is in really just embracing our own power to to create. We're all creative beings, and if you have an opportunity to create stories and tell stories that are positive, that kind of are, change the narrative around the community, and that that you're constantly encouraging others to come into this space and do that, I think that can go a long way, because if you have women who are opening the doors, I mean, you think about like Ava DuVernay, and you think about Ray, and you think about all of these amazing young women who are not only creating, content that they want to see, but they're also creating opportunity for others to get experience as well. I think we all have a responsibility to do that. I mean, here at Essence, we always have summer internships because we want more women, Black women, to come into this field. We want to show them what opportunities are available to them, and show them that there's a lot of great opportunities to tell compelling, positive, exciting stories that represent us well. We want to encourage that so that people aren't under the impression that there's no place for that in this world, because there's plenty of place for it.
Well, I just am, again, thrilled that you have been able to expound today, not only just on your life and your life journey, but some of the things that have kept you going. What are some of your favorite quotes that you've hung on to that kept you going?
Oh, okay. Well, this is going to sound totally weird, but I read in this comic book once. When I was a kid, I used to read comic books all the time, and there was something in there that said, "A winner never quits and a quitter never wins." And that just stuck with me. I don't know why. I mean, but it made sense to me that if you want to keep going, you have to keep going, because if you stop, then, you'll never get across the finish line. So that has stuck with me throughout the years. And then also, there's, a Bible saying that says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And I think about that as well, especially in those periods where I'm not feeling quite up to par, when and it might be a little difficult to keep going. I think about that, and it gives me a lot of peace and motivation to move on.
Well, I can certainly say that you have actually personified this in your journey and your walk. I'm telling you, I mean, I sort of was tickled when I was thinking 7 years in retail industry, and she decides, I mean, that transition from retail industry to become editor-in-chief of a magazine just blows my mind.
Well, I mean, that just shows me, like, listen, and, anybody can do it, quite honestly. I mean, if you, and that's why I like sharing my story with other people, especially those who are thinking about making a career change, because it is possible. And I know a lot of times it can be, you can feel discouraged, but if I can do it, really anybody can.
I mean, certainly you can. I mean, here's, I think about your story. Again, you never wrote for a school newspaper. You were never, doing something in journalism. You didn't have a book. You didn't have, had authored something. And here you end up in a job in publishing. So, and the other thing, though, I think, Vanessa, that needs to be pointed out to the listeners, too, you believed in yourself. There was something, and of course, if it was the scripture that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, yes, because you believed that you could do it. You believed in yourself. So I'm just really sort of promoting this because I know that there are listeners out there that are saying, but you can do it. And this is why this show for me is so important, for listeners to know that there are people in very high positions. We look at them and we think, maybe they had all the breaks. Maybe they didn't have what I have. I came from this background. My mother, I've known cases where children were abandoned, or they were, you came from a family where you had mom and dad with books and they read around the table. Not everybody has that, but you do have one thing, and that, Vanessa, you've pointed out, you have that power within yourself to make those choices, to make that decision, and to face those challenges. So I want to know, Vanessa, what would you say to young women who want to do what you do today. And 3 steps. Boom.
Okay. Well, first I would say, when you said it so well, is you do have to believe in yourself. You really have to believe that you have something that no one else has that you can bring to the table, and own that and hold on to it, because it's true. We're all created with something special. We all have gifts. So just believe in what your gift is, and if you don't know what your gift is, to spend some time figuring it out, to really, try some things and work through that, because once you know that, then you're really clear, right? I think the second thing is to be sure that you have passion and curiosity for what it is that you want to pursue, and be able to demonstrate that. Lots of times people say that they want something, but you don't always feel that they're passionate about it or that they're really committed. So you have to demonstrate that you're committed to something. And then finally, I would say, just be kind to yourself, because you're not always going to get what you want when you want it 24/7, and sometimes this world can make you feel like you failed in some way because you haven't accomplished that thing by the time you're like 22, and and it's just unrealistic to even think that way. So don't put that pressure on yourself. Just give yourself permission to do something in your own time, because really the only person you have to satisfy truly at the end of the day is you have to be able to live with yourself. And if you know you're doing your best and you know you're trying your hardest, then that can be okay. That can be enough. But you have to keep telling yourself that, because the world will certainly pressure you to feel otherwise.
Those
are my
true.
3.
Those are great. All those are great. And I love you for sharing that, because it's certainly tying into my belief system as well. Vanessa, there's also my question, because I detect in you this beautiful person, and you're balancing it all with